What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Nightmares Podcast, where we talk about all things horror, movies, music, pop culture, whatever the hell we feel like it. And those people who have not been paying attention, we have now exclusively switched over to guests only. We figured that it's a much better way to handle this thing. Very excited to have Richard Burgins, the director of Fang, here today. We met him at the last convention that we were at, and we invited him to come by, and we are very excited to talk about horror, talk about filmmaking. You have another director that's here as well, Mr. Zachary Smith, of course, always my partner in crime here on the Nightmares Podcast. Richard, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It's, I got the invitation to come out here to be with Mark and Zach on the show, and I'm like, I'm not going to turn this thing down. This is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, man.
Yeah,
thank you.
We tend to have a lot of fun here on the podcast. So I always kick it off with we're all obviously massive horror fans. You came down here and you're like, "Whoa, this is awesome! All this shit that's down is
these
crazy."
Posters.
I know it's I spent literally 3 weeks putting this all together. It was it's quite the endeavor. Not that I need to pat myself on the back anymore.
He loves doing that.
So one of my favorite questions of all time is, when did horror come into your life? Because we're all fans of horror and everything else. And obviously that leads into the next thing when we talk about the film and talk about filmmaking. But when did horror touch your life for the first time? And, and why has it continued to touch your life, as a fan?
Well, that is a great question. I would say that I first started getting really into horror when I was a teenager, although I had exposure to it before that. When I was a kid, like I would be more into like the children's horror, like Goosebumps, and and they had some haunted houses near where I lived, so I was into that. And my mother was really not into horror. She was discouraging me from wanting to be interested in this. But then as I got to be a teenager, and then The Shining was the first adult horror movie that I saw. And then that was a lot of new possibilities for, what I saw that a movie could do. So from there, I kind of went down the, rabbit hole of watching more kind of dark, weird, scary, unusual movies. And at the same time, I was having struggles of my own with, depression, with, different mental illnesses. And I think that when you're borderline insane yourself, you want movies you can relate to, because you can't relate to a lot of the masterpiece theater type dramas, that doesn't represent me. That's not what my life is like. So, and with horror, then it's this feels very real in a way, because even when it's not the most realistic horror, it's still, it speaks to something universal, because we all have this fear of death or fear of something else. There's always something, chasing you. Maybe not, hopefully not literally, but but there's always something out there that could be a threat. So I think that's what horror is all about. It's about capturing that, living with that threat.
So it's an emotional catharsis and everything else. And the funny thing is too, is I don't know how many cons you've been into. And we've talked about this, till the day is long. But the it's so ironic that we talk about these very primal things, but the horror community are some of the nicest, caring, loving, understanding, just overall friendly people.
Absolutely.
I brought this up too with my girlfriend is an artist, and actually that's one of hers right behind you. The Abominable Snowman. That's actually
nice.
that's her drawing.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Thank you. I'm sure she would love to hear that. But the funny thing is she was shocked on how just giving of information the horror community was on any topic. Let's talk to some artists and everything else, and they'll give you whatever information they want. So has it been your experience? Have you kind of found a kindred spirit in the horror community itself, and not just maybe even the horror movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say, is that, horror writers and horror directors and horror actors are the nicest. And I think for the most part, that's true, I guess, because, when it's like, I look at it as like, you're channeling your demons into the movies or into the books, or into any other horror art form that you're creating. And so you're channeling all of this, inner violent rage into your work. And so you don't really have much left in your everyday life. Like, I think that I'm usually a pretty calm and reasonable person for the most part. I certainly have my own dark side, and it's gotten less dark because I've been able to be creative with it instead of acting out in real life.
I'm sure Zach can, relate to that, being the horror director and being a fan a lot longer than I ever was. I was a passive fan until Zach and his crew came into my life and everything else. So it's, he's been watching horror movies since you were 2.
Just about.
Wow.
The Freddy's and the Jasons of the world got introduced to Zach very early, and the Predators and the Terminators of the world were introduced very early, just the same.
I live my life by the Predator honor code.
It's a pretty damn good code to live by. Which is cool. It's cool that that there's a community, and you can get your catharsis out, in that very healthy manner versus everything else. And that's why it's so funny to see so many horror. We were just joking about this earlier, with the exception of like maybe Clive Barker, everyone else is so normal. We met Brian Usna at a screening of Society. And I thought he was going to be one of the weirdest motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. And he came, "Oh my God, guys, it's so nice to meet you," and everything. Thank you so much for coming to the film. I'm like, I'm weirded out that you're so nice. I'm weirded out that you're like a really cool guy. Like, I needed you to be like a little weird instead of being like the dad that lives next door that brings his kids to fucking T-ball. It's just, and made such a, an amazing staple of body horror that I've ever seen, and I've have a 20-minute rants on it and everything else, and it's brought much joy to all of us in conversation for sure. But it's funny that you said that, though, about that, because they're so well-adjusted and just good people. Did you get a lot of opportunities to meet other directors and other artists as you've gone through the con circuits? How has that experience been like?
Well, I haven't met as many people as some other people have. My approach to horror was kind of formed in isolation. Like, if you spend a lot of time alone in your room when you're at college, your mind goes to some strange places. So that
absolutely.
And actually too, we got a lot of compliments. We're good friends with the people that were across your booth at the con, Amy and Lon of Black Martin Brands and Amy's Abominations, and they actually were commenting on your
cool.
booth versus somebody else's that had all this crazy stuff in it and everything else. But he's like, I don't know what the fuck the movie's about, but you got this kid who has barely anything except a beautiful, gorgeous booklet and everything else. And I know exactly what this kid is all about and what his film is all about. So it was really cool. You did a good job with the booklet.
Thank you.
If I can give you that compliment. I know Zach really, appreciated it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's really cool, that you've been able to do that. So, that's awesome. I think, and horror comes into different lives, and I'm glad, we're all here for that. So, I would love to chat about this idea, this film, because we watched a few clips of it and everything else, and it is. You've definitely exceeded above the rest when it comes to most of people's, I don't know, is this your first attempt at
my first feature?
Jesus. Yeah. So that, to have that kind of attempt at your first feature is very, very impressive. I know many people that have tried features that have not looked as good as yours. So what we'll do is, and be mindful too, is Zach's also, you have an actor's perspective here and a producer's perspective, but you also have a producer and a director's perspective here who's done many different things as well. So, walk us through, how this journey started with filmmaking, specifically. I know that you said, you use the outlet of horror to get them, but people can be fans of horror and manifest their fandom in other ways. Some people are just really, big fans. They just enjoy it and they find catharsis in them. But why did you pivot towards filmmaking specifically?
Well, I've always been creative, and I've always been pretty ambitious. Like, I knew from a young age that I would have to achieve something, and there is a kind of madness in being ambitious too. Like, you want to push yourself really hard because on some level, you're not satisfied with the way things are, and you want to reach for something that's more than what you have. And so I think that part of it that for me came from that, and that does give me kind of a perfectionistic streak too, because when I conceived of Fang, the motive for making it was, I have to figure out a movie I can make with the resources I have, because I don't have like a major studio backing me. I don't have millions of dollars. So I had to, so when I sat down to write it, I had to figure out, all right, I have to, make this, make it feel like a real movie, but also a real movie that won't leave me homeless after making it.
No, I can definitely appreciate. Had you done any shorts or anything up until that point, or did you just dive right into a feature?
I did make 2 short films, All Ears and The Identity Club, and I started doing that in 2016, and then I made my second short film, The Identity Club, in 2018. And then after that, like, I knew that I didn't want to be stuck making short films, because there are limitations for how much you can do in a short film. It can be a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it's also, some ideas need to be longer. It needs to have more expansion put into it. And the idea for Fang came to me. It was actually when I was living at my dad's house, and conditions there were kind of deteriorating. And there was one day when I was using the bathroom, and then there was like this bug, this silverfish that just crawled over my foot. And I was like, I didn't even realize it at first. I just felt this little, crawling feel. And then I saw this.
Yeah.
All these like little legs just went over my foot, and I was like, whoa, that's, and that always stuck with me, that experience. And then, I was thinking more and more about, turning into like a bug or a snake or some kind of small creature. And I realized that, if you're turning into a bug, that's been done. That would be like the Metamorphosis, Franz Kafka, that's been done. And so I figured, but why not a rat? That is different.
It certainly is different. It certainly is very, very different. No, that's really interesting that
thank you.
You have that, and you're not the only one. I mean, I don't know. Do you know the history of Terminator and how the original idea was conceived?
I think he had it like in a dream.
He had a nightmare. James about Cameron, a metallic figure rising from flame, and that's what inspired the last scene with the tail, with the tanker and everything else, and the Terminator coming out of it was all based on a nightmare. So it's interesting what what different things inspire inspire you. So it sounds like you really do pull from life experiences. Was that the same case with your shorts as well? Did you, we didn't get a chance to view any of the shorts.
That's okay.
And everything else, but, did you get, a lot of inspiration there, or did you just let the imagination flow?
Well, my dad actually came up with the stories for that. I was collaborating with him originally, and we did have a strained relationship in the last few years, so that strained relationship was also a big influence on Fang. Like I tell stories about like my family, and then my dad's mother was even more dysfunctional, and like when people talk about, like I remember when, like in the early stages of making Fang, like when we were getting ready to film it, and somebody pointed out to me saying, the dialogue in this scene is kind of over the top, people don't really talk like this, and I'm like, this is word for word the same as conversations that I've had with my dad and conversations that he had with his mother.
And then that's really interesting. And the funny thing is, watching the clips, I was telling them a little bit ago, I got very much of a Carrie feel. The a metamorphosis happening to a main character, and an estranged and slightly insane, parental figure, pushing those tendencies out of them is very,
Absolutely.
very, very Carrie, very, very Carrie. So, we love as filmmakers to break down the process, of how you do that. And we can specifically talk about Fang and how that whole worked out for you. Obviously, you started out writing. So, but let's talk about pre-production. And some of the things that you had to go through with it being your first feature, and how did the location process work? Were there any funny stories? We always love to hear those. Was there anything that was in particular about the process that really struck you from a pre-production standpoint with doing this feature?
Well, it took me 5 months to write the script, which is actually pretty fast by my standards, I guess, because a lot of it was autobiographical, so that part went by faster. And then after I finished writing the script, then I sent it out to, different people. Like I had been talking to, like, Lynn Lowry actually talked to me first. She messaged me and said that, I saw that you're making a movie, and I was wondering if you have a part in it for me. And I was like, yeah. and so I definitely made sure while I was finishing up the script to highlight her characters, the mother, Gina. And so I sent the script out. I sent it to, I looked up different people. I sent it to the cinematographer, Jason Kranick, right here in Chicago. And he got in touch with his friend, our producer, Robert Felker. And then from there, he hired more people to fill out our crew and get everything together. And I got the money to make it from my dad, and we had a few conflicts over that, but he had promised to give me some money, like as part of an early inheritance. So I was able to get it. And then from that point forward, we set up the filming, and we filmed in January and February in Illinois, so it was not warm.
No, never is. Nope, no.
I commend you for shooting during
Well,
those
thank
times.
you.
I can't do it. I hate the cold. Never.
I
Never.
remember we were I don't know if you get a chance to check out some of our stuff, but when we were filming episode 4 of our Living Nightmares show, we actually were starting to have a discussion about how cold can camera equipment get before it starts breaking down. And it's interesting to get into those discussions. How cold can it get until our shit breaks? So I mean, I'm laughing and Zach's like, no, that's very
That's
real.
not funny.
That's very real. So I know that Zach may have some directorial questions, maybe how you work with your DP and everything else, but me being the actor and then also being the producer, I love to talk about, what it's like to be in that casting room, and, and looking at how did the casting process go for you? Obviously, without the mother who you already had in mind and everything else, how did the casting process work for you? Did you go on backstage? Did you, and how did that whole process work for you? How did it all work out?
Well, I did the casting myself, and I put out ads on backstage to fill out the roles. And when you do that, you end up getting like hundreds of responses from actors. So then before I did that, I was like wondering, why do people hire, casting directors for movies? It seems like something you can do yourself. And then after I put out the ad, and I was like, yeah, I would totally pay somebody to do this if I had the money.
It could be a very daunting process when it comes to that. Go ahead.
I was going to say I prefer casting myself. I like seeing the actor in person, meeting them, getting to know them a little bit, and then seeing how they act and everything like that. So it's just like, that's what I'm choosing.
All right. So when you were going through the process, did you do it mostly via Zoom? Did you have them come in and read? Hey, how did that work out for you? What's your directorial process?
I just had the actor send in video auditions, and I went based on that. And it's funny that you mentioned, Zach, that you love doing casting, because now after learning from this, what I'm doing from now on is that I'm trying to find the right actors ahead of time so I can get in touch with them, like specifically, because that makes things a lot easier.
Yep.
If you find somebody like in advance that, is really a wonderful fit for the role. And in Fang, actually, with the lead role of Billy, that was one of the last big roles to be cast. And the reason for that is that I originally thought about playing Billy myself, and that was a major ego decision because I'm not a professional actor, but I was like, when I wrote it, I was picturing myself, on screen. But then one night, I couldn't get to sleep, and I was thinking, like, what the fuck am I doing? I can't do this. I'm already directing the movie. And so I decided that I'm going to find a different actor. And once I decided that, it was like, whew, it was a major weight off my shoulders.
No, I can tell you from experience, directing and acting at the same time can be a royal pain in the ass. Granted, I love it, and I will continue to do it at some point.
Yeah,
but
someday.
Yeah. It's one of those things. When you do it, you gotta commit,
and you gotta have a phenomenal team attached to it and everything else. And actually, and I actually licked my chops being a producer on the first film that Zach and I ever met and everything else. And I had to step in as a second, and I'm making it sound more exciting than it actually is. I fucking stood behind the camera and gave him acting advice. That was it. But I did second unit for him for his film and everything else, and just to make sure he didn't have to worry about directing all that much. We could just set up the shot and he could do his thing, and then that could be the end of it. But yeah, no, acting is a lot harder than a lot of people realize it is. It's a craft and a process unto itself. I think and I'll ask this question a little bit more into them, but maybe even, have this in the back of your head, because I'm definitely going to ask you in production about how you work with your actors.
What type of planning did you do with your DP? Because me and my DP, Brandon, we do a lot of stuff ahead of time. Like, we want to make sure we get our shot list done, all the shots that we're going to do. Like, every shot that we have in our films, I plan according with him, because he's going to be my main guy. It's just like, and he knows this stuff better than I do. Like, I know visual effects, post-production and all that, a little bit of acting, directing and stuff like that, even writing. Camera work, I don't know shit. So
I'm in the same boat as you there.
Yeah. So what was that process like for you? Like working with your DP and everything like that?
Well, I would say that my process for both working with my DP and working with my actors is that I'm generally very intuitive. Like, I just go by whether it feels right or not. And before we started filming, I like I made a mood board, like I looked up different pictures on the internet and that, resembled what I want for Fang. And I put those together and I said, this is what I want the movie to look like. Basically, this is what I wanted to feel like. And then I talked with the actors before too, and we talked about the characters. We did a few rehearsals, but for me, it's more about like, I want to make sure like we're on the same page, and then I trust people to take it from there. And a lot of it is really just finding the right people to work with who know what they're doing, like who get the characters, who get the spirit of the movie. And then from there, I just try to make sure that everything feels right. And if something feels off, then I'll try to put my finger on why and give good directions for how to get it back on track.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Nice.
That's a different way of working, and I think I would add on to that is that, obviously we're dealing with visual effects here, and visual effects people are very, very specific. I've worked with many of them over the years. They're great people, but they are very much like, I need to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to the fucking alphabet. And, so there are some very interesting and pretty good quality visual effects here. So I'm very curious. How did you plan from a pre-production standpoint, work with the visual effects people, because they got to know, they got to know that they know that they know that they know it. All the big burly Viking guys that I adore and love, they're the ones. Oh my God. I love, shout out to all the visual effects people, man. They're all like, big burly Viking people who fucking like mix shit. And they're like, yeah, so Metallica back in 86 is fucking awesome. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the right place. This is a cool room. But I know that they are very, very hyper specific. So I'm very curious how to, with a mood board kind of being a little bit more of a looser type of, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's a little bit more of a looser, open to interpretation kind of thing. And I know that DP specifically, and then also visual effects people are very, I need to know what the fuck I'm doing. I need to know exactly how you want this to look. So and obviously they succeeded. So I'm very curious, how did you plan it out with them being in kind of a more looser environment rather than a traditional environment?
Well, I think that, part of it is like when I write the script, I try to describe things in a very specific way. Like when Billy starts transforming into a rat, then, he peels off the rat fur from under his skin. So that's described that way in the script. And so I guess the best answer I can give is that it's there in the script. So we just needed to figure out, and we did all of the all the effects were practical effects. There's no CGI anywhere in the movie. So
thank you for that, by the way.
We really appreciate that. They very much appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know that they want some very specific. So it really came down to you having incredible detail within the script, and then you could easily hand it to them and say, hey, this is what I want, here it is. And then that way, and then the visual board, the mood board can kind of serve as a guiding hand along with the very specificness of the script. And then did you also do that same approach from the DP's perspective as well? Did you have that kind of specificity in the script when it came down to, because some people when they write scripts, I know for a fact that I've done this, Zach has done this to a degree, because we also know that we're going to make the damn thing, so we can kind of skip a few steps. Did your script have that kind of specificity down to the certain shots, and also to the certain lighting, because the lighting in this is another compliment, was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
It was very well done. And another thing that takes a tremendous amount of planning from the DP working with the electric and grip, knowing exactly what it is. Did you have that kind of specificity within the script as well, or was there something else going on?
Well, when I write, if there's like a specific shot that I have in mind when I'm writing, then I'll include that in the script, but I don't get into like extreme detail with the shots. Like I want to make sure that it reads well while you're reading it, so it's not like framed in shots in the script, but it's like if we have like, if we're drifting towards something or we're pulling away from something, that I have that in the script. And yeah, I do describe the lighting too, because then because you have to, at least I try to write in a way that's very, describing like what we see, very visual, because you can't, get inside the characters' heads. And I've seen like a lot of people who are trying to be screenwriters are describing the character's thoughts, and I'm like, you can't film that. That has to be taken out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of fun here because I'm having this independent thought and everything else. We kind of got like Zach's more of John Carpenter and you're more of Tobe Hooper. John's very, very like we plan. It's like playing guitar like with him. He knows every single note and everything else. And you're a little bit more of Tobe Hooper. Like, hey, I want to make sure it's got to feel this way. This is how I want to move into this. Absolutely. And everything else. And so it's very interesting. It's a different kind of style, which is cool. It leads to some fucking amazing stuff. But at the end of the day, the thing that rises to the top of both of you, and I'll compliment both of you, is talent, pure and simple, and having a strong vision that comes through. And it doesn't matter how you get there; it's that you got there, and then which is really, really, really cool. So, so it's kind of interesting. You kind of like gathered a really good team, and they kind of just ran with you. What was that like? Had you never worked with an actual producer that was doing a lot of the stuff for you, or was that your first experience with, hey, here's what I'm doing, and then the producer says, all right, well, let's go. We're gonna get the whole team, and then they got a DP and all the and everybody kind of snapped too. So I'm very curious. Is that one of the first times that it happened for you, or were you used to like how Zach is, who's the army of one, a lot of his shorts and everything else. He was jury, judge, and executioner for everything.
Well, my answer to that would be no, but this was working with a producer on a much bigger scale.
Okay.
And, making like a short film compared to making a feature film, like it's really like a whole different ball game in terms of the scale. So if you're working with a producer for like a few days, it doesn't stand out as much how much work they do in terms of getting everybody, together for the movie. It's an incredible amount of work. I don't think anybody works harder than producers in, the day-to-day making of a movie, because they just have to they have to be managing everything. And when that dawned on me, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of work to do, and I'm really thankful for everybody who does that.
Which is awesome. I mean, you're talking to two executive producers who have been put through the ringer more times than I'd care to admit. Any other funny tidbits or anything with pre-production that you saw? How was the location scout progress? Because I know there's always some funny stories dealing with homeowners and with local PD and having it. We're filming a movie, or my favorite, which I hear from a lot of people, which is, hey, we want to use this hotel for film. Is it a porno? No, it's not a porno. That happens a lot. So I'm curious, if any fun things happen with location or anything with pre-production.
Well, I got to say that most of our locations worked out really well. We didn't have problems in like 90% of our locations, but there's always
that one.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, yeah, but the main location, that the house that we were filming in, which was the family home where most of the movie takes place, and that house had a lot of problems. It was like the heating didn't really work very well, so we had to use like generators, but we couldn't run it while we were filming because it made too much noise. So it was like turn the heaters on, turn the heaters off, action, cut, turn the heaters back on. That was how it went.
Oh man.
And then running all of the generators and space heaters took a lot of electricity because there were also electrical problems in the house. And so one day, everything just kind of fell apart. The TV in the house caught on fire.
Holy shit!
I didn't say.
Oh no!
I wish I got to see that. I wasn't there yet. That was before I got to set.
That's probably a good thing because that's stressful. That's just pure stress. Like
I was stressed already, even though I didn't get to see that.
Like hearing about it is one thing, but actually seeing it, you're just like, oh no.
All right. Hold on. I gotta ask. Okay, so when you got there and everything else. By the way, 3 questions in this. One, were you informed before you got the set, or were you informed when you arrived on set?
I was informed when I got there, and I could still see like it wasn't like a huge fire. I could say that there was like a little bit of smoke.
Who told you? Was it your EP?
I don't remember the exact.
Because that's a test of a real good EP is to break the news to the director of some kind of catastrophe.
Well, I remember
that's a real test right there. Is that they had the good news and everything else, which is awesome. Anyway, please continue about that.
Well, I just remember when I got there, it was chaos, and everybody who had gotten to set earlier was talking about the TV, of course, and then we realized that there were serious electrical problems in this house, and so we had to find a different house, and thankfully that did not cause any serious problems with our filming, because when the filming schedule was made, we filmed all of the scenes in Billy's bedroom first. And we finished up with that just before the TV incident. And so that was like perfect timing. So we were able to switch to a different house with no problems. And the new house had no problems. So it worked out for the best.
So how old was that house? Do you have any idea? Because it sounds like it's old as hell.
I mean, it doesn't actually. There's one shot in the movie where you can see the outside of the house. Like, it doesn't look that bad from the outside. I mean, it doesn't look great, but it doesn't look that bad. But I think it was neglected. It was a neglected house. It needed more love from
Upkeep
the previous
and
owners.
stuff like that.
Yeah, oh my god, that's awesome. I mean, not awesome. I mean, it's funny now, but not so funny then.
It makes for a good story.
Yes.
Oh my god, so those are the best. Those are the best. The best stories are always when filmmakers can kind of vent about all that stuff. Did you have any fun ones from your short film days that you had? Anything? Maybe not as big as a TV blowing up.
Oh, that's the biggest. That's the biggest
one?
incident I've.
Okay. It's like we've definitely had problems.
I'm sure there will be more in the future.
Oh yeah, the film gods sometimes smile, and the film gods sometimes give an evil laugh. That happens more than you would like. You had mentioned earlier too, though, that and kind of still finishing up on pre-production. You had mentioned that you went through a kind of a tiny rehearsal process. What does that look like for you from a directing standpoint? How do you rehearse with your actors and with the rest of the crew? How does that work out for you?
Well, what I did for Fang is I had I think 1 or 2 Zoom meetings with my actors, and then shortly before we filmed, we did a read through of the script for everybody who was able to make it, and that was basically it. And then I gave the actors notes ahead of time, and we just kind of took it from there.
Nice. Okay. Because I know Zach doesn't do as many rehearsal processes unless it involves some kind of, a lot of stunts, or maybe it's just a day worth of rehearsing.
Oh, yeah. We rehearsed the stunts too, because if you don't, get that mastered, you have the possibility of being sued if something goes wrong.
Did you have like liability insurance or anything like that, or any sort of?
Yeah, we had insurance.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, and even if he didn't, he probably wouldn't admit it on the podcast. So did you work? Was there enough stunts to warrant working with a stunt coordinator, or did you kind of just work that among yourselves?
Oh, we had a stunt coordinator for the few stunts we had, and it's really like, and Fang is more of a slow burn kind of movie, so there's not a lot of like physical combat until near the end, and so we had to rehearse the few scenes where there's stabbing and mutilation involved and people falling on the floor while getting stabbed. And so we had to make sure everybody was, prepared for that and was, getting in the right position so you can have like a stage fall instead of like a fall.
I'm used to just falling on my back. I just say fuck it.
Yeah, and Zach and I have worked together twice as director and actor, and Zach, just tell me what you want to do, and I'll go do it. It's not that hard.
Go jump off that building, please.
I'll jump off a roof. There's a couple of times I've told them no. So from so okay, we can shift over into production. I'm curious, about this. This is, again, comes a lot of questions from an actor's perspective. You're dealing with some very intense, I was going to say intense subject matter. How do what is your process for working with actors in these very intense situations to build that kind of trust and creating a good environment while also managing the crew behind him and make sure that the crew behind him isn't interfering with the actors on screen? Because this is obviously very personal subject matter for you. You want this done correctly. So I'm very, very curious how you're managing a set, especially and working with actors that are going through these very intense emotions. What's your process like for that? Creating that environment.
Well, the most difficult part of that for me is sending out the script, because people generally react to it one of two ways. People either, really connect with it and, and they really like it and say this is, really powerful stuff and this is the kind of movie I want to do, or people read it and they're like, oh my God, no.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Absolutely.
Do it. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of stress involved in that, but then once you get past that point, then and I'm not, I realize that, I'm the director, but I'm not God. I don't need to be an asshole. I don't need to act like I'm some kind of big shot, because everybody else is equally important to me. And, you can't, like, if anybody walked off set randomly, there'd be serious problems, because we can't make the movie unless we have everybody working together. So I guess that's kind of my attitude now. I had a little bit bigger ego when I was younger, but now that's how I try to look at it, is that, we're all in this together, and I don't want to make my actors feel uncomfortable, but I also, by the time they're filming, they've already read the script. They know what they're in for. And I did have a couple of people who turned down roles in Fang after they read the script. But for everybody who's agreed to do it and is, coming out to film it, then I guess that helps create a good working environment.
So everybody who was there wanted to be there.
Absolutely. I hope so, unless I was mistaken about that.
No, not at all. I'm sure, so, and that's a very interesting thing, because the script's so polarizing, like either people are all in or they're not. They so you get an opportunity. So the kid who played the lead and everything else was really damn good.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about what his journey, because obviously I'm approaching this from a standpoint of that's you. And it's you,
Well,
but
people actually thought it was me when they looked at the poster because it looks like me.
we actually, I had to do a double take, but so I'm curious, how did that, because it's art imitating life, but it's you, but it's not you and everything else. So how did that, how did your working relationship with him work out during production and maybe even a little in pre-production? How did that whole work? Did you take him on a journey, or did you kind of just trust him to do the process and really get into it? And how did that relationship kind of blossom? Because again, it's more personal, in this case than maybe any of the other characters that are going on, with the exception of the lady who played the mother. I'm very curious about how that worked out for you, because it's you.
Well, actually, what happened was, when I was doing the auditions to play Billy, and I got a couple of, video auditions that I thought were, good, and I wasn't originally sold on Dylan as being my top choice, but one thing he did in his audition video that stood out to me, and I didn't realize it at first, is that he did more of the silent scenes, which a lot of actors, want to do, like the big monologue, you want to do dialogue, drama, but what Dylan did when he was auditioning to play Billy is he really captured the physicality of his character, even more so than just the talking part, because a lot of the scenes in Fang don't have a lot of dialogue. A lot of it is physical. And so that kind of clicked with me on a subconscious level. And then I realized eventually that, Dylan is my top choice to play Billy. And so he was, he really liked the script. He really liked the character. And so we took it from there, and yeah, I thought he did a great job. He got very into the role while we were filming, and I think it was kind of like I noticed that it was a little bit difficult for him emotionally having to be in this dark place. Like and he told me like that he was feeling more sullen as we kept going filming this because he had to keep being in Billy's headspace, but I think, that it was a very intense, acting experience, and he did a fabulous job playing Billy.
Yeah. Was he a bit more method, or how would you describe his process?
Well, I guess it became method acting in a way because of, having to live with this character, although he was not acting as Billy while the cameras weren't rolling, so it wasn't pure method acting.
Okay.
I can appreciate that. How long was the total production of Fang? How long did it take to film that sucker?
It was 23 days, 12 hours a day for 23 days.
I mean, that's good. You got it done within a month. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. And then did how was the did the cast and the crew did they hang out afterwards, and did they kind of build a community and everything? I like to ask that.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun thing. Did they kind of build, because when you're with somebody for 23 days, 12 hours a day, you kind of don't help but become kind of a family and a unit and everything else. So I was curious how that all worked out.
Well, yeah, you said it yourself. It's a really strong bonding experience because you're in this confined environment together and you're working toward the same goal. It's a little bit, I mean, I hate to compare it to like being at war because it's, that's a whole different ballgame, but it's a little bit like that because you're together and you're fighting the odds to get the movie made, and so I think that brings people really close together, and for the most part, we got along really well with each other. There were some conflicts, of course, but they were conflicts that we were able to resolve. And yeah, I mean, it was a difficult shoot, but all things considered, it went extremely well compared to some of the horror stories I've heard about the making of movies. I feel very lucky to have worked with everybody that I did on the making of Fang.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
Nice. And was there anything on the spot that you were like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I'll give it a try, and then it ended up working out fantastic. I mean, I know if we've had those experiences where we're like, maybe we're not sure, but let's give it a shot. It's probably not going to work, and then it ended up working fantastic. It's almost the opposite, the inverse of that question. Did you have anything like that?
Well, I guess the movie as a whole is kind of like that because it's a long shot that this is ever going to work. I mean, you're taking like, filmmaking is gambling on a massive scale. Basically, that's what it is.
It's a calculated risk.
I've been making movies for many years now, and I've never thought of it like that. But that is very true.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's very true that that's the case. It's I like to call it a calculated risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you are planning it. You're not just going all in and everything else. So no, that's actually a really good, a damn good answer to that. So I know that I'll let I obviously you kind of mentioned that we mentioned this before, but Zach is our editor, visual visual effects on the post side, and does a lot of really, really cool shit on there. So I know that he's going to have some questions on the post production side and kind of where you're at. So I'll let him run the show on that point.
So I know you're not 100% done with post-production, but how far along are you with editing? Are you on Final Cut, or I know you've started some of your visual effects and stuff like that, some of your audio design. So where are you with post right now? Let's start with that.
Well, we're almost finished with the VFX and the color grading, so we're really close to being done. There are a few more things that I want to do with the audio, and that's really been the longest part, which I would guess it is for most of these kinds of movies. When you don't have a huge budget, then you end up doing a lot of work in post. So, but yeah, I think and then after the VFX and color grading are finished, then then the movie is going to be turned over to me, and I'm going to make a few more cuts myself because I've had new editing ideas while the other editing has been going on. And so I want to make the last few changes myself and then put in the credits, and then I guess it'll be finished.
That sounds great. So,
thank you.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're pretty close to completion then.
I sure hope so.
Do you think you have a timetable when you'll be fully completed?
I mean, within the next couple months, I want to have the premiere in October, because what better month could there be than October?
I agree 100% on that.
Yeah. The and the old and I always wanted to add, the old saying is you make a movie 3 times: once when you write it, once when you film it, once when you edit it.
Oh yeah, and I made the movie 3 times while I've been editing it.
yeah, been there, done that, bought that T-shirt. So the question for you is, obviously we're going to do this in October. Let us know. We'd love to come in. I'm going to
be very vocal about after we get the premiere date. I'm generally a bit more quiet and reserved. I'm going to be very vocal, very extroverted about the premiere date. I'm going to be plastering that sucker all over every telephone pole. Maybe not that, but I'm going to be very vocal about it.
That's good. Do you have an idea where you want to premiere it? Maybe Music Box or something like that?
Yeah, I'm thinking the Music Box would be good. That main theater is really spectacular.
Yeah.
That's a great place. That's a great place to have it.
So all right. So what I always do is I always end with a question of the podcast. I haven't done it in a while, actually. But I think what is, because we're all filmmakers here, what is a location that you would love to film in that you haven't had an opportunity to do so? Like where, and it could be anything. It could be an actual physical state location, or it could be, just a type of location. So I always let the guests go first, but you do have an option to pass if you don't know everything. But based on your smile, I think you have you have an idea about what you would like to do. So take it away.
Well, one of these days I would like to, there are and that's kind of the thing, is that, when I'm writing, I always end up coming up with really dark, gritty stories. So I would like one of these days to get to film like in a tropical paradise, or get to film like in Italy, like in Rome and Venice and everything. I would like to get to film there, and, get to like have like a filming / vacation instead of just filming like in 25-degree weather.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Zach, since the camera's on you and everything else, you can go ahead and
anywhere in the ocean, in the water. Maybe do a James Cameron and film 1,000 feet under the sea.
There you go.
The fuck you doing down there, James? You ain't filming Avatar 2. You're building Rapture down there.
Oh my
Let's
God.
be honest.
Yeah.
How much more money you need?
A lot. But yeah, I've always wanted to film either in the ocean or on it. Just I love the water. I love sharks.
Yeah.
I love the water. It's just super fucking cool to me. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually I have a very specific location. It would be St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh, that is a great place.
I've fell in love with it. It probably will be the place that I get married in the next couple of years. I absolutely love it. I think there's a lot of things I would love to do with it. I always wanted to film a coming of age Halloween story that is set in a not typical Halloween setting. Because a lot of people don't realize that people in California, New Mexico, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, or at least parts of Georgia, Louisiana, they don't know the Halloween that we know, which is the very atypical. That's the very atypical, the leaves on the trees and, in the cooler weather. They know, just the same thing as they always know. They know, palm trees and everything else. So I wanted to get their perspective one time. I thought would be pretty cool. But yeah, St. Augustine, just filming there would be fucking.
It's a beautiful town.
It is a gorgeous town. We'll have a nice little chat after the podcast is done. So that being said, this is your opportunity, sir, to have a plug-in. You can tell everybody where to find all of your stuff on social media, on if a website you have, whatever you have, you can look directly into camera and plug it to that camera, that bad boy right there.
Well, right now, the best place to go to find out more information about Fang is you can go on the official Fang Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/FangMovie. And that's a great resource for finding out more about it. And I hope to have my own website up and running in the near future. And so for now, I hope everybody who's watching this gets a chance to watch Fang, and I hope you have a fantastic time watching it.
That's fucking awesome. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on. And then thank all of you for watching this awesome podcast for Midwest Horror. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Slasher. And of course, if you are watching on this on YouTube, if you'd be so awesome to stab that like button, smash that subscribe, and click that little dingy bell to be notified every time we drop amazing content right here at MHM. We have a lot of cool stuff going on. We appreciate you, and we will see you all next time on the Nightmares Podcast. Bye, guys.